My people, what up, though? Here we go again. We back with another episode of All Black Men Need Therapy. Just turned my damn ring light off, but that's okay, because if you're listening to it, you can't see it no way. You know what I'm saying? But I'm going to go ahead and get this right. You know what I mean? We back home. Okay, here we go. Fellas, what's goody, though? Happy Juneteenth and belated Father's Day and all that.
All of that good stuff. Happy Father's Day, you know.
I saw your videos online, bro. I saw your videos. I saw the old head go in the Soul Train line. You look back like, what? How cool was it, yo?
We had a great time, man. Shout out to everybody who came out to the Oakland second annual Juneteenth festival. We had at Lake Merritt, really peaceful time. Thousands of people out there, families, enjoyed ourselves from 12 to 8, man. But that Soul Train line was legendary, but like that Soul Train line was for real. Like that was the epitome of like it was dope. It was dope.
It looked legit.
That looked like old school block party. That's the vibes I got.
Yeah,
that's the vibe.
Nah, it was real dope. But we was talking off camera. Just throw a quick gem at him. Clarify that shooting up wasn't y'all, B.
Nah. There was some ignorance popping off on the other side of the lake, and unfortunately, it was a casualty, and a couple other people were wounded. But yeah, that wasn't had nothing to do with the event that we did at Juneteenth, and everybody had a peaceful time and got home safe. But shout out to all those affected, man, and the brother who lost his life, man. It's a really unfortunate situation. People act ignorant still nowadays. It turned out that it was like two rival gangs from San Francisco and was shooting at each other, something like that. Right. I read it in the paper today, so shout out to those families, man. But yeah, we had a great time. It was still a lot of love, man, in Oakland.
I want to just reiterate the fact that black folk can get together and party and have a great time and not be no trouble.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? As soon as something go down, they want to pin it on the Juneteenth celebration. We was out there doing what we do, celebrating.
Right. That's exactly what we were doing. That's what we did, man. So,
how was your Father's Day, fellas? How was the Father's Day, Bellhead? I mean, I saw you, but
Yeah, it was cool. I was about to say I saw your punk ass on Father's Day. It was good though, man. We went back to Connecticut. Saw my pops. You know what I'm saying? My pops real easy to please, man. He I got him I had bought these shirts that I just never felt like returning. And they were from H&M, they were cheap, but that dude was happy. You know what I'm saying? So I
was there when gave it to him. I got to see old Curtis, man. That boy had his cookout short set on though.
Yo, my man.
He had the matching joint.
You already know, man. He had the 3/4 length shorts on. You know what I'm saying? With the black tube socks, with the sandals. You know what I'm saying?
He had the cookout outfit on, B. The one you see in pictures. That was it. Yeah, and don't get it twisted. He is a phenom at that grill too.
Oh yeah, nah, he ain't nothing to be played with. Hey, Prentice, real quick. Yo, you know what I was listening to yesterday? I don't know why, but I just got it. It came to me. Man, I was listening to Hammer Don't Hurt Him, and I got to thinking. I'm like, yo, they must have loved Hammer in Oakland, man.
But listen, to this day, one of my best childhood memories, we were going to this mall in the city called Newark. It's called New Park Mall, and we was at the stop sign, and he was leaving the mall in this cherry red drop Benz, and he was at the light, and he pulled up right next to us, and I looked, and I was like, yo, that's Hammer. He was like, what's happening? And just peeled off. But like that moment was like I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like I said what's up to MC Hammer, he said what's up and skirted off at the stop sign. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? That's always like one of my stories. But Hammer's a legend.
So me and Hammer is boys now. Like I don't care what y'all say, that's my homie now. You know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm saying? I said what's up and he skirted off. We cool like that.
Yo, I don't know. I don't know what it was, man. I was putting my son to bed last night, and I just started singing. We got to pray. Pray. We got to pray just to make it today.
But that album there was some bangers on that album.
No, it was, man. The dude went multi platinum, so it had to be some bangers on there.
Hammer was that guy. Did y'all ever watch the special on him? How he blew through all that bread?
Yeah.
That was crazy.
But I heard he's back
Anyway.
on top, though. I heard he got some ill investments, and he back on top.
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
so
he doing all right. He doing all
Yeah,
right. So
man.
yeah, fellas, let's get into it now. We wanted to pick up where we left off last week in protecting these black women. P put out some topics that I think they're gonna be powerful for us to get into, and we'll let you run it. P, what's up? From
Yeah, man.
your perspective.
I was just thinking about the conversation that we had last week, and just the emotions and the feelings and some of the challenges that I'm finding myself facing. So, I think because I'm in such a space of transition, I can't necessarily like overlook emotions or incidents and things that happen. And like I was telling y'all last week, one of the biggest things to me was I felt like I had failed her as her protector in that situation. Even though I know I was her biggest advocate when she was too drugged up in the hospital, even though I know I encouraged her to speak up and applauded her when she did, because we went through that experience, a part of me is like, damn, but it still happened. You know what I'm saying? So it just got me to thinking about, as men, we usually want to hold that title of protector and provider super close and high. You know what I'm saying? So what do you do when you don't feel like you necessarily did that? You know what I'm saying? Like I know it's not my fault what happened. I know that. But a part of me still feels like I failed the mission by her not coming out unscathed. You get what I'm saying?
I hear you completely. Yeah, yeah.
100%. And I want to give you a shout out, man, for obviously you were super vocal about it before we even got on air to talk about it, man. And I was getting some feedback with from basically a family member of mine, a really close friend, who she didn't give me the feedback. She gave it to my wife, who gave it to me. She's a maternity nurse, so she's black, right? So we were talking about that, and she was in tears. She's like, she's so happy that you addressed it, because this is something that needs to be talked about, right? I feel like with these staggering statistics, and maybe it's just me, maybe I'm in a bubble, right? Maybe I live in a closed off world, I don't know. But these staggering statistics that affect black women and black babies, I don't feel like it's talked about enough, right? Like, and obviously when it affects somebody that's close to you, then you start digging in, right? Figuring out what's happening, right? Why they feel this way. And then you start uncovering, it's like, one, this isn't anything new, unfortunately, right? And two, it affects like the country. It's not just like Oakland, or it's not like the West Coast. Like this is a systemic issue. And I give you, I praise you, man, and applaud you for having the courage to do it. But I also understand what we're talking about today, right? Like the psychological toll that
Right.
you can't defeat, right, in the sense of a protector in that moment, right? Because that there's not a tangible, it's not a tangible threat. It's not something that, okay, I'm gonna knock this dude out because he's disrespecting my lady, right? That's simple, right? That's something that, quite frankly, we're probably more equipped to handle than what you're talking about right now. So I think this is a good topic, 100%.
Yeah, so one of the questions that P had, it was I don't remember exactly how you worded it, P, but it was something along the lines of like feeling like a failure for not being able to protect your people. And I began to think about just, failures, and obviously, we've grown to learn that to take those failures as lessons and, whatever. But when
Right.
when I personally think about failure in terms of like just in general, I guess failure, the first thing that comes to mind is not being able to provide a stable home, and for my kids. And I don't mean like they have everything they need at my crib. They have, they're fed and well dressed and all the other good stuff. But I mean just like being able to represent a household like you two gentlemen have. You know what I'm saying? Like it's been one woman who's met my children in the time I've been single. You know what I'm saying? So not being able to, or not being in a position right now to exemplify what it is to be the man of the house, what it is or how it is, so my boys can see me treat a woman the way they need to be treated. Like, it's candidly speaking, my sons are 7 and 2. My son Major, the very first time he saw his parents in public in the same place was at his first flag football practice when he was 5. Outside of me picking him up from his house and her picking him up from my house, he's never seen his parents in a public space. There's no pictures of us together. You know what I'm saying? To me, that kind of like it feels like a failure. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I know it's not the case. I'm a good dad, all the other good stuff, but it's something that when I considered your text message and looked at it, I'm like, yo, that feels like failure to me. You know what I'm saying? In that regard. And again, I know it's different from the circumstances we're talking about, but I just wanted to touch on my perspective on what failure looks like from this standpoint on my end. What are your thoughts on that?
Can I say something real quick, Bill?
Go ahead.
I totally feel you. Yeah, I totally feel you on that. I think for me, and you're totally valid in that, because I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, you wish you could redo some things a different way so you can show a couple of different examples to your kids at this point. You know what I mean? But those are life decisions we make and the circumstances that come. I think for me, when I talk about failure in this context, it's more so because the decision to have the natural birth was because we already knew going to the hospital was going to be like going behind enemy lines, so to speak, right? So when we actually got there, I'm like, we're here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wasn't naive to what happened. I just didn't know we were going to experience it on such a blatant level. You get what I'm saying? So to come out of that, kind of having an idea of what we were going into, but not knowing the like the severity of it, it feels like a failure in that sense, because I feel like mentally I had this notion, I knew there was a possibility that we can experience something that we didn't deserve to, or that she could, and it still happened.
Do you think that, I mean, not, I'm pretty sure I know the answers to this, but do you think you have, or perhaps Sarai has, a sense of PTSD wrapped around this? And I say that because I watched the Kevin Hart Fatherhood last night with my daughter. We watched it together, and there was a moment where his daughter, there was a moment where his daughter got hurt, and he had to take her to the hospital, and it was the same hospital his wife died in. And he was like, "Yo," he walked in. It's like, "Nah." Then she needs stitches. He's like, "Nah, we leaving. You guys know what you're doing here. I've been here before, and I saw how you guys work here." And he was about to walk out. He's like, "Well, she doesn't. If you don't get stitches now, she's gonna end up with a big scar, whatever." But it was like, in that moment was like big for me. I'm like, yeah, this cat's like, I mean, he hasn't been to a hospital or been in the hospital since his wife died, and the first time he goes back, he has to go back to see his daughter who's in there, and he was like, that PTSD walked up on his ass. Do you think that's something that you carry right now?
Absolutely, because last night she put it on so we could watch it, and we got to like 3 minutes in where I think they were sitting at a desk talking to a doctor, and they're like, "We're gonna have to emergency. We're gonna have to like rush it."
Yeah.
And right there,
trigger.
It took me right back to when we started visiting the hospital, and I paused it because I was like, "Wait, what's this about?" So I had to look at the caption on Netflix, and I read it. And then the first thing I saw was a widowed husband, and I looked at it and I was like, "Nah, you're gonna have to watch this without me," because it automatically triggered me back to being like, my worst fear was something happening to her. You know what I'm saying? So, and I was like, this is too soon for me. I can't do it.
So real quick, fellas, I think we're going on a couple different paths here, but I think it all intertwines, so it's a good conversation. But it's like, we started off with, do you feel like a failure, right? And then it went to, Chief, other areas in our life that we personally feel like we may have failed our child, though, like we said, it's circumstances in a lot of cases beyond our control, just like Prentice's situation is beyond our control. But then now it begs the question, like, one, how do we, what does protection look like in those moments? One. Two, where you guys are both right now, is how do we cope or manage, right, that PTSD or guilt, right, that we put on ourselves for not protecting, right, in those moments. So I think that's the piece, right? Because that's where you are right now, Prentice, right? Your situation, unfortunately, you had to endure it, and now it's how do you go forward, right?
Right.
Obviously, you want um, all parties involved to be healthy, right? That's the number one goal. But then there's a piece of, okay, well, what's health look like for you, right? In terms
Mm-hmm.
of how you're managing that going forward. And I'm not saying I have the answer, but what I'm saying is like this is a good opportunity to talk through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I do. I feel you. I think for me, like, protection in that sense, it felt it to me. It feels like a victory. You know what I'm saying? Like as a provider of a household, as a father, the success within that feels like a victory, regardless of what the obstacle is. You know, I like to come out feeling like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, something was
Right.
thrown at me, but I handled it. I think dealing with the post part of it is a little different for me because I'm already in a vulnerable space as far as self reflection. And then I'm trying to find ways lightweight to normalize it through the fact that it's so common in the hospital, if that makes sense. So I think rather than dealing with how traumatic it really was, you know what I'm saying? Like me having to clean her off and peel her off the bed, like I know how this shit makes me feel, but I think I'm normalizing it a little bit through um
Well, I think
I don't know,
one
bringing
way
light to it in a way.
you're doing it.
I don't know.
I think one way, whether you realize it or not, is you're doing it through advocacy, right? Like that's what this is, right? You're venting, getting your story out, trying to putting that hospital and specifically that doctor on blast, but you're also underhandedly, whether you realize it or not, also being an advocate, right? For moms and for this issue. I gotta plug my computer in my.
Quiet, Chief.
I'm soaking it in. I'm texting my daughter. Sorry, but that's you
That's
know
all good.
that's the I think that's the cool about this show, like the podcast. We can still be us. And I'm like, yeah, I'm texting my daughter right now, but that's because we can do what the hell we want to do on our podcast.
Damn
Um,
right.
but no, I'm just so I mean, we were talking about protecting black women and you feeling like a failure, and I just like I said, for me it was a lesson on failure. For me, it was the conversation about failure and how we overcome that. So I would like to kind of shift the conversation. Maybe we can point to a particular area in our life to where we feel like we failed, how we dealt with it, and ways to help people perhaps overcome failures.
Mm.
Yeah, I can point to one in my life where it's not necessarily a failure, right? But I deemed it as such, and that was having a child at 15, right? So
Mm.
when I did that, obviously people thought I was about to have a whole bunch of kids and stuff like that. Um, but for me, I'm like, this was hard. This wasn't ideal. I had to still graduate college, do all these things as a single dad, and as a result, I'm like, I'm never doing that again, right? I'm never putting myself in a position to have a child out of wedlock, right? And it wasn't even about the wedlock for me, but it was about my age, right? And my daughter and I basically grew up together. You know what I'm saying? We're 15 years apart. So that to me was like, all right, I'm never going to put myself in that position again. So I said, the next time I have a child, I'm going to be married, right? And that was a commitment that I made to myself. Now, again, my daughter's successful. She graduated college, the whole nine. So it's not a failure per se, but in my mind, that's how I categorized it in an effort for me to make some real change. You know what I mean? So now when I have my son, it's a completely different dynamic, right? Like we're going away and this will be the first time that he hasn't seen. I know you said, Chief, that Major hasn't seen both his parents together in a public setting. This is gonna be the first time he hasn't seen his parents. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's either we're always together or it's one of us for a long weekend if I got a work trip. You know what I mean? So that in my mind was its success going into it, right? That's the one thing for me that I beat myself up over, and like Prentice, in a way, I just turned that into fuel for my next move, right? For my next decision, and learn from my, I'll say mistake, because nobody should be having a child at 15, right? But not a mistake for what came from it, right?
No, I
Right.
totally get it. And it obviously that makes an abundance of sense. P.S. I got my ticket. Get off my back, bitch.
What
You
ticket?
got your ticket.
To the we going away next week, cuz.
You said P. You mean Bell?
I said P.S. Stupid.
Oh,
I
PS.
heard
I thought
P.
you said P. Yeah. Everybody in America thought you said P.
Yeah,
So
but when they play this back, you said P. And we was like, ticket?
Whatever.
What? So why I gotta be a bitch though? Like, whoa, whatever.
So P, how are you? So to kind of piggyback on what Bell was saying. How are you? One, how are you dealing with it now that it's what's done is done, and obviously you have to move forward. How are you dealing with that? And two, would you like to discuss another particular area of failure that you've overcome and how you did so?
Yeah, I think now we went a long time not talking about it at all, which we needed to do because we needed to normalize life with a new baby and not focus on what happened. And we were able to do that. So now, we're at a point where now it's about to get back. So that means legally, that means that advocating on behalf of black women going to hospitals. It's about to get back now. You know what I'm saying? Like when the mind gets right, and our mind is right, and our spirit is right now. Like, okay, now we're gonna show you don't really fucked up. You know what I mean? So I think that's how I'm healing and making sure that, so that, and I'm able to do temperature checks with myself because that's something that we're getting the ball rolling on. You know what I'm saying? How do I feel about it at this point? How do I feel about this incident happening? Is this something we need to talk about? So that and an area of failure for me, um, I allowed some things to happen in a previous relationship that I'm really not proud of that influenced and affected my children. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the biggest thing for me that I struggle with when I think of failure. It's just things that in hindsight, um, had I felt more better about myself and cared more about myself, I would not have had my children in that position. You get what I'm saying? And so seeing how much better I'm doing now, ironically, triggers the thought of what I allowed previously, man. So that's one thing I kind of beat myself up for time to time.
but I
Okay.
think I think what's important to note, fellas, that we probably don't give ourselves, and I say ourselves as men, as fathers, credit for, is growth, right? And
Yeah,
what we have to learn through, right? Like on its surface, like I know, like in the beginning of our podcast or beginning of you joining Prentice, you kept talking about, uh, 4 kids, 4 baby moms, stuff like that, right? And it's like on the surface, somebody be like, oh wow, right? But it's like, you know how much I've grown, right, since then, and like how this
right,
situation is gonna be so much different, right, than previous situations based on all the mistakes I've made and what I've learned through, right? Like that's I think that's just an important piece to note, man. I think a lot of times I don't want to speak for all black men. I'll speak for us on this call. I think sometimes we're a little hard on ourselves, right? And I feel like
mm,
sometimes we can give ourselves some more grace. And just like Prentice, you probably can be giving yourself more grace with the whole hospital situation, right? But I get it, right? I get why you don't. I get it.
right.
So I think that's just an important piece to note, right? As people are listening, is I'm a firm believer, man, and as cliche and sports centric as this is gonna sound, it's like it's not how you start, it's how you finish, right? Like That's it. Learn, right? Like, and as long as we're learning, then we're growing, right? And if we're growing,
So,
then that means now we can also help somebody else. But go ahead, Chief.
so what you like? I completely agree with what you just said, and I think even with that being said, I hear you. We both hear you, and we still are going to be hard on ourselves. Still not give ourselves that grace because it's almost like it's wired in us to be that way. But I think these conversations where you give him the grace
Yeah,
allows him to at least bask in it, allows each other to bask in it in the moment because I think we're just so, I don't know why, black man. It's just something that we're wired, we're conditioned. We're always hard on ourselves. You know what I'm saying? And I think you need a circle of friends, a crew of people, somebody you can talk to, say, yo, bro, like, it's gonna be all right. Like, you got it. It's cool. Like, pat
right.
yourself on the back. And that brings me to our point last week, Bell, when we gave our final thoughts. You mentioned you wanted to like challenge my perspective. I think that's
Yeah,
a good topic to bring up right now because
yeah,
it's a good way for people to assess situations. So in last week's episode, I
yeah,
ended with, it was heavy. It was very, very heavy. And what I wanted to do intentionally was shift the dynamics of the conversation and create some positivity in it. But it's also kind of how I've learned to live now, and it's find the positive in it and use that to fuel the rest of the fire rather than continue to harp on the negative or let the negative consume me. You know what I'm saying? And you made a point about, what you want people to, as much as that's cool, catch the moment, address the moment,
yeah,
and,
right.
not let shit like that slide under the rug.
Yeah, because and thank you for bringing us back. And just real quick before I address that, what what we serve as to each other in these conversations, I don't know how much experience you guys have with like hot water heaters or furnaces, is we serve as um pressure release valves, right? Like sometimes when you gotta when in your system, you gotta just lift the lever and let the pressure run out from the bottom, right? And that's what these conversations can be to one another. We don't have them enough, so that pressure, I'm saying we in holistically, like black men, don't have them enough with each other, so that pressure builds up, right? And then which goes into another thing. But to I'm glad you brought us back, Chief. Like I said, yeah, your your final thought was the only time that I felt like I needed to challenge a final thought, right? And everything you said was positive. Everything you said was uplifting, right? But everything you said, with your words, right? Not your intention, but your words were that of essentially suck this shit up and let's keep pushing, right? And when you said that, you're saying that, I'm like, well, it kind of triggered me because I'm like, well, that's kind of why we have this podcast, right? It goes back to what I was saying. And I was like, if we do that, that's cool. But we also need to take the time to address what's actually happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And address how it's making the impact it's having on us. Because when we keep forging through, like we've done for hundreds of years, when we keep forging through, one, it doesn't give us a chance to potentially identify what happened in that moment, the behavior, right, that it evoked, right, the situation that we were put in, right, and it doesn't allow us to feel, right, because we got to keep pushing, right, we just got to keep pushing through. But it's like, damn, give me a second, right, to feel what actually happened, to address my feelings, to feel my feelings, right, and that was the only point I was trying to make. And again, it was implied by what you said, but that's not what you said. And that was all. That's the
Right.
only point I was trying to make. You know what I mean?
And
It's
that,
like,
and that,
yeah, everything you said was uplifting and positive, but it's like, but we human, right? And we still have emotion that we have to address, or it will address us. That was it.
and that,
Right.
and it's all a valid point. And yo, I wanted to, you were talking about this, and the reason we started this podcast was because we don't have these type of conversations enough. Men aren't vulnerable enough or don't have a
Time out. Shout out to us for our year anniversary. How about that? Shout out to all Black Men Need Therapy for our year anniversary. It was a year ago.
tomorrow.
A year ago in 3 days, where we filmed our first episode.
That's what's up.
I think it
Shout out
was
to us.
July. July 25th. We're recording this, ladies and gentlemen, on July 22nd. I think it was July 25th we did our first episode. Anyway, sorry, good brother.
Anyway, yeah, no. So I was just saying, but like we don't have these platforms for us, or just a strong enough crew to have these conversations and be able to build like this. And it's very, very important. And I saw something today. Shout out to D-Rob. D-Rob posted this and said, it's Men's Health Week. And peep the statistics on this shit, yo. 84 men a week take their own life. 75% of suicides are male. And it says men are less likely to get help, but speaking up saves lives. Let's encourage men to speak up and not man up. Like, and that shit is real, bro. Like, I didn't know the numbers were that high.
I know what you did. Your comments, in a nutshell, was your comments were just that, man up. Right? That's why I added that piece. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. To speak up, right? To feel. Like, that's exactly it. Yep. But that, again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but that's indoctrinating us. You know what I mean?
You know what?
Like, that's what our parents did. Go ahead.
I feel like we underestimate the power of suppression. You know what I'm saying? Like what you know, like when we do kind of gloss over or keep pushing, we got to suppress some of the things that we're choosing not to deal with so that we can keep pushing. You know what I mean? And I don't know how conscious we are about like the long-term effect of holding on to those things. You know what I mean? Like how they're going to show their face if you don't.
I'll challenge that. I don't think we have to suppress it. I think we're taught to suppress it, right? I think that's a learned behavior. Yeah.
My bad. I'm saying, right, like I think we underestimate why we shouldn't. You know what I mean? Because suppression is so powerful. You know, like it has an effect on you. Know what I mean? So when I say the power of suppression, like it's strong. You know what I mean? I don't mean it in a good way. Like it can really do some damage later on.
Like with Belgium, right. Like, deal with the problems, deal with your problems, and the problems deal with you. But what's crazy is there's this may be a new term, I don't know, but there is like a subconscious suppression that happens a lot of times with us too. Like we're not even aware of some of the shit that we put in these pockets, and then it comes back and punches us right in the face. And we're like, damn, like I said, rolling with them daddy issues. Like, yeah, it's never something that really weighed on me. But in talking to my guys, I'm like, damn, this shit is deep. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's just a bunch of
Father's Day.
Say what?
You called them for Father's Day?
I saw your father on Father's Day. What the hell are you talking about? That's crazy. No. I didn't call my brother. I got to call my brother and say Happy Father's Day. Nevertheless, man, yeah, yo, like, so I feel like we touched on everything we want to touch on today. I think, you know, it's important to deliver the message of it's so. I guess it's okay. Is it okay? It's okay to be. It's okay. Obviously, okay to fail, and it's okay to have those same fears as Prentice had of not being able to protect. And it's just a matter of, you know, finding ways to reassure yourself that, you know, you're in the right place and doing the right thing, I guess. I mean,
yeah, and even if you fail, right, to learn, right, like we talked about, right, like the growth, right, like Prentice went through something that he's got. There's a lot of lessons in there, right, and what he does with that information going forward it will show, right, like he may not have been able to protect Sarai in that moment, right, but he's using his platform to advocate again, right, for other Black women that may potentially go through this, right? So it's the same thing, you know, like he's protecting Black women as a whole by having this conversation, whether he realizes it or not.
AP, Bell it's a good point. I mean, I'm sure there were a plethora of lessons learned in that moment. If you had to identify what would be the biggest one that your biggest takeaway from that moment of like that whole, you know, the birth.
I honestly, bro, the biggest take is how connected we are, man. Like she's my person. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know how else to say it. Like they say about like like every dog has a person. You know what I'm saying? Like I'd be the dog, obviously. She's my person though. You know what I'm saying? Like we're meant to go on this life road together. Like the way it all panned out, the way she was able to deliver the baby, the support I gave her, the way we connected without her saying anything, as much trauma as there was, like we came out with our baby. You know what I'm saying? And so it really, I think, speaks to how connected we are and how compatible, how much of a fit we are. Like we're for real team. That's really
And
the biggest thing I got out of it, man.
that's dope because it sounds like in conversation, it sounds like through that trauma, it's grown stronger. Like you guys have gotten
Oh
stronger. You
man,
know, like it almost felt
you
like I
see
don't know
how
if you.
people are wired in certain situations. You know what I mean? Like, and who would expect you to be in that situation? But it shows you. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm running down the hall cursing out everybody looking for the last doctor because I'm not having it though. It shows, you know, like if you got somebody back, that's the time where you're gonna have it, man. So I'm proud of myself for how I handled it. You know what I'm saying? But it really showed me that we're really compatible, man. We that's my motherfucker. You know?
So the
I always
lesson
say,
the lesson in that is you kind of never know what you got until you go through some shit together.
I
You know what I'm
already
the
saying?
knew.
strongest relationships, the strongest relationships are forged through conflict, man. I'm a firm believer in that.
Right. So for those of you who are in the midst of your struggles and trials right now, there could be a much brighter side, a much brighter future on the other side of that. So keep pushing and you know what I'm saying, persevere through those tough times. It may be, you know, it may be tough now, but shit could get really, 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 really good, yo.
Yeah,
And
man.
I like
Yeah, like,
that's why Chief and I so close. I beat him up in his driveway one day, and then
that
he
nigga's
figured we
lying.
just be friends
That nigga's lying.
going
P.
forward.
I whooped his ass in my drive.
You know what I'm
What was he like? We was like 21, maybe, Bell.
saying? Yeah, we was young.
We
Yeah,
might have been like 20,
probably
hey,
20, young, new
yeah.
20. We
if
put
it
the
ain't on
gloves on
tape, it
right
didn't
in the
happen.
driveway. Huh?
Put them up.
I said if it ain't on tape, it didn't happen.
Right.
I had to put the pause on him, Prentice. I had to put the pause on him one good time, man. Let him know I ain't nothing to be played with. You know what I'm
That
saying?
nigga's lying.
Hey, sometimes
P,
you gotta
don't,
let nigga
if
know,
you,
you know.
if you believe that, you believe anything.
Shit.
Anywho, yo, so yo, I feel like we dropped hella. I felt like it was hella gems in this joint for people to pick up and pull from. Yo, I thought I enjoyed the conversation, and for me, it's just always good to rock with my guys. I be needing this shit, yo.
Hell
I
yeah,
swear
it felt good.
I'm like the pillar of strength and be like, nah, they be like, how you doing? Like I'm fucking great, but I convince myself I'm good, but I be having shit pent up in here just to like talk. It ain't gotta
That's
be about
suppression.
me, just to
No, that's
talk. Like it's
suppression.
like not word, but just like to
Yeah,
talk to my
yeah.
is vital. You know what I'm saying? So Bell
You still
talking about
go? You still?
I was thinking about quitting. Nah, you stuck, homie. You stuck, cuz we need this.
Uh, you still going to your therapist?
Yeah. Things are going cool.
No, no, you ain't.
Not word.
When last
I
time
don't
you?
even know.
You really are?
I'm looking at you a week and a half ago.
Okay,
Week
my
and a
bad.
half ago. Yeah.
My
I'm
bad.
not I'm still on it, cuz. I'm doing what I
I
does.
gotta. I gotta. Matter of fact, I gotta find one in Boston. I need to get back. Dad wanted to do virtual, but I'm not. I'm not a virtual therapist guy. I need to.
So
I need to
so
look out.
anybody in Boston who knows some therapists, you know what I'm saying? Put my man on. See what's good. P, what's
Yo,
up? You think about seeing a therapist?
Oh yeah, man. That's the next step, man. I'm at a real deep stage right now, man, where I'm really dealing and processing with a lot. So I know that therapy will help me do that. So yeah, I'm definitely about to really get busy with that.
that's
That's
what's
what's
up,
up.
man.
That's definitely
Yeah,
what's up.
Yeah,
man.
man.
We can chart our journey together because I gotta find one out here.
Word.
And for just so you guys like just for the public, if you work in a company and you have benefits, most companies have what's called an EAP line, Employee Assistance Program,
Yep.
and you can call them. And even if you don't have insurance with your company, being that you're a member of that company, you still have access to it. That's actually how I found my therapist the first time around. And I have my wife's insurance, right? But I called the line, they got me set up with Deb, and that's how I found my therapist. So that's a resource for you, right? You can call your employee assistance plan program, and they can point you to a therapist in your area. So that's what I'm going to do again out here, right? As I go down that path again.
That's what's
What's up,
up.
man?
That's what's up. Black men doing the work. Love that shit, man. Final thoughts, fellas. What's up? P, you want to go first?
Yeah. Learn to forgive yourself. That's it.
Yeah.
Learn to forgive yourself.
Enough said.
Learn to voice your challenges, right? You don't have
That's
to.
important.
You may feel alone, but I promise you, someone wants to hear from you rather than you taking any drastic measures. You know.
Word. In totality, lean on somebody, yo. Your lady, your therapist, your homies. Lean on somebody you trust and have these difficult conversations and help yourself be better. I think step into a piece of vulnerability and it'll change your life.
Yeah, and hey, reach out to us, right? Like if you're going through something, and hit us in the DM, hit us in the Gmail, right? All Black Men Need Therapy on all platforms. Let's talk through it, right? Like, look, guys, we're not above. Like, we respond. Like, for those who've reached out,
Yeah,
we respond. So,
we
like,
absolutely
if you
do.
got something weighing on your spirit, you know what I'm saying? We could talk about it, right? Like, I'm here for all Black men that want help, right? Like, that's period, right? You see me in the streets,
Straight up.
you know, we can talk, right? Like, you hit us up in the DMs, we can talk. Like, I want us to be better as people, right? And get better.
And always protect Black women.
Always.
Yes.
With that being said, fellas, that's a wrap for today's episode. So y'all, again, like Bell said, hit us up in the DMs. All Black Men Need Therapy on all social platforms. All Black Men Need Therapy at Gmail. Shout out to the production team. And we out, y'all. Do us all a favor and keep the party going by hugging a Black man today.
Do it.
And tomorrow.
Yeah.